Aquaman can't live in the desert. The Green Lantern doesn't like the color yellow. And Wonder Woman loses her powers when she's tied up. And Batman? Batman doesn't go to family holidays. What's your kryptonite? On today's Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. Protein shakes, breakfast of champions. One of the things I always teach my new agents and everything like that is when you're, always find some extra food to carry around with you. Granola bars, protein shakes. Sometimes you just don't get a lunch, and I have the opportunity to get some recording done early, so it's a protein shake kind of day. My name's Charles Ray Dawson. I am the associate broker and sales manager for ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 54, and it is the 9th. Okay, I'm actually recording this on Wednesday because I got a glorious period here where everybody's out of the office. I had all this time to myself to work on my stuff, and I was like, hey, let's knock the video out early. So thank you guys for tuning in. Last week we covered what's your superpower, and that got a lot of commentary and stuff like that. I had a lot of people Facebook me and talk and stuff like that. So this week I want to talk about what's your kryptonite. Now, last week I started with the numbers, let the whole world knows what's going on, and I want to do the same thing here. So first things first, numbers. Got some Cromford report here with Tina, and then I'm going to explain how the numbers that we're seeing right now really means you need to start identifying what your kryptonite is. All right, here's the numbers real quick. Now the numbers for February 9th, 2022. Actives this week were 4,608, which is down 125 from the week before. New listings on the market this week are 2,324, up 110. Pendings this week were 2,156. Up 217. Under contracts and looking for backups are 1,133, up 77. Contracts looking for buyer's contingency are at 66, which is down 12. And our closings are at 1,560, down 537 from the week prior. Coming soon to an MLS near you is 968 new listings. All right. And as you can see, our inventory is still going down. Why does the inventory keep coming down? Is even though we're seeing higher numbers coming up of what's going to be coming onto the market as the coming soons, and we're also seeing the higher numbers coming on every week, we still see more houses coming off the market because buyers are still out there. Little anecdotal evidence. My broker has a listing. He got 9 offers on that listing over the weekend. We had 23 people show up at one of our open houses. We just got a call a few minutes ago from one of the agents. He's out there in the $850,000 price range, cannot get a house under contract, and he's throwing big money at these houses. He's going over and still getting beat out. Now, offering over list is still pretty common. From our Tina numbers and stuff, sales over asking price, strangely enough, it's only 42.6%. Right, and the average the median list over price is coming in between $10,000. So you're thinking to yourself, what's going on with the other 58% of the houses that aren't selling for over list price? And one of the things you got to remember is that we have that voice of sanity in this market, which are the appraisers. Now, the sale price that gets recorded and actually that's what the deal was finalized at, gets compared with the list price. So you can bid 10, 15, 20,000 over. There's still a chance that the appraiser is going to come in there and say, nope. All right, list price was right the first time. And good agents are always going to be listing their property at the price they think the house is going to sell for. All right, and so that can reset things. Even though we have 8 days on the market as our average, day 14 didn't sell the first weekend. Doesn't look like it sold the second weekend. Next weekend's coming up, then we see the prices start coming down, and we'll start actually seeing people will be writing an offer. I feel a lot more comfortable writing an offer at list price on a property that is, 2 weeks on the market, 3 weeks on the market, than it got listed on Thursday and we saw it on Friday. And it's not a good time to be writing a list offer. All right, let it season a bit. Let it go through the weekend or two, especially if you think it's high to begin with. So, our year to year appreciation, January of last year to January of this year, it was 27.1%. And that dives into our previous agent that I was talking about, the guy who's at 800 and 850 and is offering higher and still getting beat out. Right. So what's his superpower? His superpower is that his buyer has $700,000 in cash, and he's looking to get a loan for the extra 800. So his superpower is he can waive appraisals. All right. The appraisal contingency, meaning that if the house does not appraise for the value of the contract, the buyer has the right to pull out of the contract and get their earnest money back. Their superpower is they can waive that, and their superpower is they can bid over, well over. All right, they can pay more for that house than the market says that house is worth, and I would argue if that's what the house sold for, and that was the offer accepted, that's the new market value of that house. But let's dive into that a little bit more. Let's say they're looking at an $800,000 house. They have $700,000 in their pocket. If I can come up with some graphics, I'm going to drop them right here. So, $800,000 house, $700,000 in cash. They would need to finance $100,000. Right? Obviously, they can borrow more than $100,000. So, if they wrote that offer for $900,000, and the house appraised at $800,000. Right? They would, if it's a conventional loan, need to come in with 20% of that, which would be $160,000. So they need to be coming in, they could finance as long as they had, I think it's $380,000, $360 at that point. And they have that. They're financing more of the property, but they're getting the house. And let's say they did overpay because it just appraised at the $800,000 as originally done. So they're $100,000 over. Well, we just found out that properties appreciate 27% year over year. So let's see how much that's going to be. Go to my handy dandy calculator. We have an $800,000 house. We're going to add 27% to that. This time next year, that house is going to be worth over $1 million. And if I told you, you're going to buy a house today, all right, or you're going to buy something, today, for $900,000, that's going to be worth $1 million this time next year. You'd pay for it, wouldn't you? Right? That's the leverage you get as a buyer when you have cash. And that's your superpower when you have cash is, they always say it takes money to make money. The ability to grab something, that's going to be worth that much more. You can overpay up to 27% over list price, right? And be right a year later. Now, let's say they keep looking, right? At 27%, that comes down to over 2% a month that those house prices are going up. That means that if you're capped at 800, you're going to see your houses shrink. All right. The house that you can afford 800 will get smaller and smaller as time goes on. While you sit there looking for the perfect house, and it's going to start moving to the location you might not want to live in. Think about that. Leveraging your superpower by being able to overpay for a house, by being able to waive the appraisal, by being able to put in cash above an appraisal, right? If it doesn't appraise for that amount, and restructuring your loan so you're borrowing more money means you're going to be in a position where you're going to be benefiting now and later on. Right? So, really great example of how a superpower helps you out. Let's talk about your kryptonite. Right? That's what I wanted to cover about today. Your kryptonite is something that affects you negatively when you're trying to buy a house. And there are various things that can be that way. It could be your job location, and then you have to actually commute into work. Right? If your job location is out in Goodyear, you're in one of those new facilities that they're putting in out there. but you really, really want to live, for whatever reason, in Apache Junction, all right, your kryptonite is basically going to be you have to drive from point A to point B. All right, your kryptonite is your job and where you're going to find a house. All right, and state that better. If you work in downtown Scottsdale and you want to walk to work and you can only afford $200,000, your kryptonite is your desire to walk to work. If you have an unusual hobby, all right, let's say hypothetically you have an Etsy account and that you make on those huge looms you see when you go to the historical recreation villages and they got Goody Francis sitting there making, cloth out of these huge looms. Let's say you have 2 or 3 of these things and you need workspace to put these things in. That's your kryptonite, because not every house is going to have the facilities to do that. So start looking at what your kryptonite is. It has to be within 5 minutes of my mother's house in case there's an emergency. Where does she live? She lives in South Phoenix. Okay, no problem. But, here's the but, I want to live in a house with at least an acre lot, a swimming pool, and built in the last 5 years. I can get you everything on that except for the house built in the last 5 years, because they don't build houses in South Phoenix with acre lots. All right. For, in that area, because when they're doing subdivision stuff, they're dense packing them all. We don't get the big lots anymore. You can get the big lot, but you can't necessarily get the new house, right? So as you're sitting there and you start doing, you said, I want this and I want that. Start looking at your wants and needs. It's like, is this a kryptonite? Now remember, all right, one of the interesting things about kryptonite, all right, it only affects Superman. It doesn't affect anybody else around him. All right. And the only reason why it affects him as kryptonite is because he's not from here. He gains his power being here from the sun, right? But kryptonite is part of his old planet, and that's why it hurts him. Right? So something that's kryptonite to you in a certain geographical location may not be kryptonite in another geographical location. Make sense? I want a 3-car garage, and I want to live in downtown Central Phoenix, south of Northern, north of the freeway, and between 7th Avenue and 7th Street. Right? And I want a 3-car garage. That 3-car garage is your kryptonite. Right? That's going to mean if you do find it, there's going to be less houses to pick from. You're going to be paying more from it. But that house, the same one I just described, can easily be found in North Peoria, or Glendale, or parts of Gilbert. Right? So your kryptonite is also geographical. Other things that might come on, a FHA loan right now can be considered kryptonite, because the appraisal is going to come in, and the appraisal might come in with conditions. So there's a lot of things that might happen on that. That can also be a real good benefit for you, because it's actually putting you in the game. All right, but it can be perceived as kryptonite on the way out. But I can come up with a scenario how we flip that. You have $50,000 to purchase a house. All right, $50,000 to purchase a house. Now let's really play around with the numbers. All right, let's say you have $150,000 to play a house. All right, and you want to put that down. You want to get a conventional loan, but you're getting beat out, right? Because because of your price point and everything else. If you can move that over to an FHA loan where you're only going to have to put 3.5 down, well, guess what? Now that benefits you, because you only have to put 3.5 down, which means you actually can't go over the appraised value. Think about that. Your agent will be able to help you out with these, and your lender will be able to help with these things. All right. I don't just want you thinking outside of the box. I don't want you even in the room that the box is in, right? Because that's what we have to do with with today's market. There's only, 4,600 odd houses out there. Probably less, maybe more by the time you're actually seeing this video. Right? And remember, that's for the entire freaking state, and that's all of them. That's those big mansions up in Paradise Valley, all right, all the way down to those little one bedroom, one bath, tin sheds. Right? That's all of them. Right? And out of those, there's only going to be so few that so many that are going to meet your requirements, right? So we really got to work on leverage and everything, and we really have to minimize our weaknesses by identifying them really early on, right? And figuring out how we can neutralize them, right? And what I mean, another example outside the box thinking was, I have people with unusual hobbies, and at one point they needed a garage, but they didn't need the garage to put cars in. They needed the garage to put their hobbies in. All right, but they're in mind, they were focused that was going to be a garage. When you identify what's the purpose of the space, and you start defining it by the use and not by the name, now we got something really interesting going on, right? Because you start actually thinking more what's going to happen with that space. I want a formal dining room. Why do you want a formal dining room? I want a formal dining room because I want my house to be where we have Thanksgiving dinner at. Just like my grandmother did, my mother did, and now it's my turn to do it. And I want to have the big formal dining room. Okay, what you really want is you want to have entertainment space that you can have the big dinner at that can seat 12 people. Maybe you don't need the formal dining room as much as you need great room space that you could set the big table up in, and that you can move it in and out for those events, because you're only going to be using it once a year. It's like fireplaces. Some people only use their fireplace for Christmas once, and then they realize the house gets too hot, or whatever these purposes are. So start looking at life that way. It occurred to me in the middle of editing this that I forgot everybody's super secret weakness, everybody's internal kryptonite. It has impacted every superhero out there. And that is the power of love. Or at least the power of lust. Or the power of, please don't let me sleep alone tonight. And that is the non-purchasing partner of the buyer. Is the person who is buying a house and has somebody coming along with them who's going to be living with them. And that person has this big set of needs and wants that is impacting the purchase of the house. Right? They're not going to be on the mortgage, and they're not buying the house themselves, but they're the ones who are coming in with, yo, dude. Actually, let me do that. Let me do that. Yo, babe, it'd be so totally cool if we got like a room where me and my band could practice. I think if we just had more practice, we could really go something. Yeah. And so next thing you know, you're shopping for a house, for a space for the boyfriend's band to rehearse at. Because he just needs about 6, 7, 8 more years worth of practicing and rehearsals before they could actually score a gig somewhere. So watch for that, and if you're watching this video with your significant partner, you might want to just sort of mute this part out. I should have warned you about that before, because a lot of times I'll see people coming in and, she's buying the house and he needs a 3-car garage because he wants to park his truck in there and the motorcycle he's going to get working on next week as soon as he has a garage. Or whatever that particular thing may be. It might be somebody's bringing in kids or something with them, and next thing you know, you're purchasing the house for you, him, and his 3 kids are going to come over every weekend and whatnot. I mean, ultimately that's totally fine. Right? You buy the house you want to buy, and if you want to consider the other person's, needs and wants and desires in the middle of that thing, go ahead and do that. Just understand that although it is easier to get out of a marriage nowadays than it is to get out of a mortgage, make sure that you're not buying that significant other a house instead of your own home. All right? So a little editorial in there. Back to the script. Just to wrap up on all these things, this is a continuation of that thought line. Your agent that you're talking to will be helping you define these things. They will probably not be using the terms I use. They might be using other terms. All right. But if they're not asking you about that, start asking very specific questions like, is my desire for a 3-bedroom car going to impact me in this neighborhood? Are there other neighborhoods that I can get into, right, that will have these 3-car garages? or whatever that thing is. Single story house. I have to live in a single story house. Right? My knees do not go up and downstairs. Right? So let's go find ourselves a single story house. Your agent will be helping you define these things, but it's not really something that you're going to get when you're Googling, what should I look for when I'm buying a home? Right? They're not going to discuss it in these terms. So that pretty much wraps up this week. Thank you very much for watching. The follow-up stuff, I had a really great meeting earlier on with Heather King, that escrow officer that I'm always talking about. She has admitted in front of witnesses that she will actually allow me to interview her on this podcast. Really looking forward to that. Hopefully she's watching this podcast right now so she knows what she's getting into. If not, she's in for a surprise. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you guys later. We have calculator, $800,000 house. We're going to add 8% to that. That house is now going to be, stop. I'm going to cut this part out. This is a hand signal. Let me know to cut this out. 800,000 plus 27%. Right.